Mridu, thank you so much for joining me on the Salon Owners Collective podcast. Pleased to have you here.
I'm so excited to be here. This is one of my favorite things. I get to speak to a really smart business owner like you. So thanks for having me.
Well, look, let's start with who are you? Where are you in the world? What do you do? And how did you get to be doing that?
I am Mridu Parikh. It is so much easier to say after you've had a glass of wine. I am known as the Stress Squasher. My official title is Productivity Coach. I'm a mom of two, and I live in Music City in the U.S., Nashville, Tennessee. And a bit about myself, how I got into this was I spent my first decade of my career in marketing. And I had the opportunity to stay home with my kids after we had a big move. I had two young kids, and I thought, I've hit the lottery. This is awesome. I can finally leave that job. And I was home for less than a year when I was like, this is not really the fantasy I had in mind. I think I need to get back to work and do something else as well as being a mom. But that's sort of when the entrepreneurial bug hit. I was like, I don't want to go back to the corporate world. And so I started a business. And back then, my business was as a professional home organizer. My company is called Life is Organized. And so if probably everyone's familiar with what that is now, actually going in home and doing closets and pantries and all that stuff, only to realize didn't love that as much as the coaching side of it. So I ended up coaching on home organization. However, about 4 or 5 years ago, I transitioned to productivity based on what I was going through as a business owner. I would get stuck in all the busyness, right? I would spend all this time on tasks I thought I should be doing instead of what would really make me successful. I was working on every part of my business. I was drowning in the weeds. I was perpetually overwhelmed, even though I had a growing business, but it wasn't like the freedom and the flexibility that I thought I was signing up for. So I really just went on a personal journey, really nothing to do with business, changing my business, just how to get focused, how to be productive, how to manage my time, got trainings and certifications and all these things. And then essentially just move my business that way as I was able to grow my business, but with calm and serenity and systemizing and planning and back to like what I imagined getting into business was supposed to be, So and that's now what I teach other women business owners to do. I really help them get out of the frenetic overwhelm and help them take control of their time and energy.
Well, look, this is exactly why we are talking today, because we're kindred spirits. My journey is very similar to yours. And now I help salon owners do exactly the same, because this is a life that, to add chaos to the matter, if you're a mother, a wife, a hairdresser or a beauty therapist, and you're a business owner, now, you've got 4 hats all of a sudden. And most of hair and beauty salon owners are wearing the hat of being the stylist or the therapist and serving clients, plus they've got a business and a team to run. And this just creates chaos and disorder and overwhelm and stress. And unfortunately, too many people end up resenting their business or resenting their clients or resenting their whoever else that's important in their lives, but it doesn't have to be like that. So I'm super chuffed to be talking to you about this. This is something that we need to overcome. And I think it's overlooked sometimes that it's a thing that we need to, it's a skill we need to master. We're not born with this ability, and business is not easy. It's not that we're doing business wrong necessarily. We're just not organizing all of the balls that we have in the air. Would that be true?
Yes, I'm so glad you said that, because there is this belief, I think often, that I'm just not born with this skill, or I'm not wired that way. I'm not made this way. And it is 100% learnable for the most disorganized person, for the most quote unquote chaotic person. These skills can be learned by anyone, and anyone can master them. So it's just sort of a matter of just knowing some of the strategies, putting it into practice, maybe having some accountability by your side, and practicing, you can absolutely get there. So I just want to assure anybody listening.
Yeah, because I am not by no means born in. Some people are more naturally organized than others. I was not one of those people. And so I've had to learn it despite myself, and it's a game changer. So I'm excited to talk about this. Let's talk about specifically when somebody finds themselves in overwhelm, a little bit of life chaos, too many balls in the air. What are some things that we can do to get ourselves back on track?
Okay, so I think the thing that we want to do, right, we're really overwhelmed. There's all these demands and requests being thrown at us, and your head spinning. You don't even know where to put your attention. So our kind of immediate reaction or innate inaction is, let me just respond. Let me react. I've got to do all the things. Let me just get things off the list. Let me check them off. Let me, put my head down. I'll do more. And I think it's so natural as a response, right? And we think that in order to be successful, we need to have more doing. But I want to challenge you, if this is you and you can relate to this, that I want you to start thinking and get into your mind that in order to be more successful in my business, I need to do more planning. And this is the most counterintuitive thing that you'll ever want to do when everything's being thrown at you. When you feel like I have no time, the last thing you want to do is sit there and plan, because it feels like a waste of time, right? You're like, I don't have time for that. I just do, get it all done. But I promise, I guarantee that if you can step back and reassess and reprioritize and just sort of, get your head on straight about what is the most important, or what are the most important priorities for the day, or what is going to drive my business forward this week, or, all things seem important, but what is the most urgent truly? And if you can take that time to sort of plan those out, you're going to get yourself back in control. This is when you start empowering yourselves and you start feeling more confident, because you're like, okay, wait, I know I can do all the things, but now I have a plan, and now I have a plan of attack, and now I have a methodology, right? And it just gives you this feeling of empowerment and this feeling of control. And I think that's what we lose sight of. We feel so out of control when it actually can be in our control. So my answer there is take 10 minutes, 15 minutes, step back when you don't want to, it doesn't feel like it, and plan.
Yeah, you're so right. Planning is counterintuitive when the list is long and deep. But it's the planning and the organization of the lists that will set you free. I always say systems and processes will set you free, whereas actually it's for those people that don't love systems and processes or think they don't love it. There's some kind of tension. I don't want to be organized. I resist that, but it's actually that will give us the freedom. All right, let's talk a little bit about maybe speaking of systems and processes, systems that we can use, tools and resources that we can use to manage, because I think, in business, we're smart entrepreneurial women. We can do all of the things. Mm-hmm. We just can't do them all at once.
Right. Yep. Yeah. So some really basic things, and this is, again, a bit of a mindset hack, a bit of an actual hack, like actually doing this. But this is really a habit of emptying out your brain and getting every thought. And I mean, every thought, even the things that you have done 100 times, right? It's rote, it like the back of your hand, even those ones, to get them out of your mind and get them on a list. And I'm going to kind of talk about, what I think is one of the easiest ways to do this is sort of like two lists. I call one is a master list and one of a sort of a top priority list. So you have these two lists, but let's start with this master one. And this is essentially your brain dump throughout the day. So especially being a salon owner, really all of us, we are connected to our phones 24/7. So I find the easiest place to do this is actually on our phones, because they're always with us, or in our pocket. They're always, they're right there. And so even if you're with a client and you think of something, don't want to be really rude, but you might say, hey, it's really important, or you can step away, go to the back, type it in, there's a way to get it. So I'm a really big fan of digital versus paper and pen because of that, because you don't have access to it all the time. What if you drop your coffee on your notebook? What if you leave it in the car? It's just not with you all the time. So anytime you have a thought, I would suggest getting it down, get it on your phone. There's plenty of apps, and I won't even really get into all the list making tools because there's so many out there. There's Evernote, there's OneNote, there's Monday, there's Airtable, there's a million of them. And to me, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter what the tool is. It's the strategy that you have to nail. You'll always find a tool, right? It could be a Word document. It doesn't matter. But you just want to get it down somewhere. And if you can get into that habit of constantly emptying out your brain, constantly getting thoughts out, what it does is that it makes room in your brain for new ideas, new creativity, but it also just kind of gives you peace of mind. Well, I haven't forgotten about that. I have it down somewhere. I don't have to, I'm not going to wake up at 3 a.m. because I forgot that thing. You just have it down. Now, I'm not saying it's all going to necessarily get done. That's a whole nother step, but if you can just master, we got to go step by step, right? This is the first step. If you can master that, getting things out of your head, you're just going to see how much more free you feel during the day. So as this becomes a habit, so I'd say that's your one list, right? You have the list, but then I'd say keep a second list. And so it's so simple. It's just two lists. And that second list kind of goes back to that first, what we were talking about earlier was really taking that time to plan. And that other list is sort of just like your daily list, your daily plan. And I would say keep it to up to 5 priorities at a time, which people are gonna be like, what? I have 100 things I have to do. How can I pick 5? Pick your top 5 that you want to get through first. And then when you're done with that, girl, you got 95 others on your list. You can go take the other 5, right? And I like to do work in 5 at a time and keep that as a separate list. And here's why the separate list is so important. Because, even if you're like, if I have my master list and I have 100 things on there I have to get done, and you're like, okay, I'm going to go pick my top 5. Let me work on those first. Your eyes keep going up and down to the other 95 of them, and you start feeling overwhelmed and you can't breathe and you're feeling nauseous and it's so much. So if your eyes and your brain can just stay focused on this other little list of 5, which by the way, could be a sticky note you carry around with you. It could be an index card. It could be on your phone, but it's something so simple. It keeps you focused because, we overcomplicate everything and we make everything it's just even more chaotic. So let's just keep it simple to 5, get through those, and then do your next 5. So it's a really simple system. Sometimes it's so simple that people, your immediate reaction might be like, that's just too easy. And then you do it and you're like, okay, this really helps me stay focused.
Yeah, for sure. And I think what I love about that is there's a sense of achievement when you tick off the 5 things. Like, I need that achievement. Otherwise, I feel like I'm on a treadmill and I never accomplish anything. So I think to be able to tick off the 5 things and go, I did that before you pick up the next 5, super powerful.
Yeah. And also, I'll tell you, we can fall into the trap of how do I pick 5? So this is where a lot of people, we just get stuck. We're like, I have so many, and all things created equal, I have 20 top priorities. And here's the truth. You really might have 20 things that are top priorities, fine. But you've just got to put a stake in the ground. Just pick your 5, because what it's also helping you do is start honing your decision-making skills, which is a lot of also what keeps us stuck, right, in chaos, because we just can't pull the trigger on something, right? Or we keep procrastinating it, or we're thinking forward. So even this little act of just put a stake in the ground of 5, it helps that decision-making. And also, like you said, it helps you feel like I'm a success. I got something done. I started and finished it. And now I can do my next ones. Because here's the issue, and I'll end on this point, but if you have 20 tasks on your day, let's say for your day, you're like, I wrote down 20 things out of my 100. And then you get to 14 of them. Okay. Let's say there were small tasks, you got to 14. And it's the end of the day, and that's a lot. You did a lot of work and you've been working hard. You put in so much effort and so much energy. What do you think about at night when you're going to go to bed?
Yeah, all the 6 that I didn't do.
Right. The 6 that you didn't do, right? And so even though you've worked hard, you've accomplished a ton, we'll just end up in this negative power and this negative energy because we focused on what we didn't. So that's another great reason of the 5s, because typically we can do 5. And maybe even if the next 5, you only do 3 of the 5, well, we've done 8 of 10. So it feels really good, instead of 8 of 20. So it's just a little trick. They're like little psychological lifts for us to keep going and stay motivated. And we know as business owners, we've got to keep that energy up and that motivation and that inspiration every day to show up as our best selves day after day. So this is a really simple way to do it.
I love that if I've done my 5, I can go and pick some more from the fruit bowl, go and get some more, and it's extra credits. All right. One of the challenges that we face is time, and not being able to make the space for the priorities. What would you say around kind of prioritizing, making space for those priorities?
Mm-hmm. So here's a step that I think gets missed a lot. So let's say all right, I'm going to do this brain dump every day, and I'm going to listen to this lady. I can't say her name, but I'm going to listen to her, and I'm going to do this top 5 list. And where the gap typically is actually putting that on the calendar with realistic times. Okay. So often we're like, I have my 5. All right, totally got it. I'm going to do. I see my calendar. I see my clients on there. Okay. And in my mind, in my brain, because I'm a smart woman, they just seem to match up. Like somehow I think that all those 5, I'm going to complete them in between all my clients or my marketing or the other things I need to get done. It makes sense. I'm telling you, where we all go through it totally works. It seems like it on paper, but we haven't really put on paper because we haven't married what's on the list to the calendar. And that's where the breakdown happens. So that's when you really start thinking about, okay, so let's say, for instance, I do want to put up a social media post today, or I need to follow up with some clients or whatever's on your list. And you really start thinking through how long this will take. So maybe this post is going to take me 20 minutes, or this follow-up will take me 45, or creating that, whatever, newsletter is going to take me an hour and a half. And when you really start adding it up, now those 5 tasks, you have maybe 3 to 4 hours to complete them. Okay. And you're looking at your client that day and other meetings you have, and you have maybe 2 hours left in your day in between. And now it's like the math doesn't add up. The 4 hours doesn't equal the 2 hours that you have. And what you do is that we risk failure all the time. We sabotage our abilities to be successful because we're simply not kind of like marrying the two. Like, how long does this really take? And do I actually have time for it? So if you have 4 hours of tasks and only 2 hours in the day, you'll either have to scale back and say, I'm just going to do 3, my top 3 for today instead of my top 5, or just say, I'm going to do pieces of those 5 and break them down. There's different ways. But that is really how you get those priorities to actually happen, is you got to map it out. So make that time on your list, by the way, should not only be business things. It's just as important, if not more important, to go exercise or get your butt to the gym or go for a walk or meditate or spend time with your family without the phone at night or whatever else that you want to do, right? And those may be part of your top 5. And when are you actually going to do them on the calendar? Like, put them on there. I find that a lot of times clients think this is, again, like sort of like feels like a waste of time. This is the planning. I'm talking about. They're like, but this just takes time, and I can figure this out in my head. And it's like, well, how's that working out for you? It's not. It's not working out. So take that 2, 3, 4 minutes extra to actually plan it out on your day.
That's a game changer. I do that. It's the only way that I survive is my calendar. Everything is in my calendar. When I pick up my kids from school, when I need to take some medication, it's in my calendar. Almost when I go to bed is in my calendar. It's not actually, but everything is in there because I have to be realistic about what I can and I can't do and what else I need to delegate, or even just sometimes I have admin catch up. So there's a kind of a bit of compression time of things run over that I can catch up. I usually do that on a Friday and it's always full. So I'm a huge advocate for that. And really thinking around, priorities based on time. When does this actually need to be completed? And I can do that before the other one that I kind of secretly really want to do, because I actually like doing that one, but this one actually needs to be finished first. All of those types of things, it is well worth the time invested in planning that out.
Yeah. And you know what, you make a really good point. So I think that typically what a lot of business owners do is they put the date when something has to be delivered, right? This has to go out on Friday. So like, oh, Friday, I need to get this out, or we are really good about putting our doctor's appointments and meetings and hair appointments and those, right? But then it's like that thing that had to be delivered on Friday, that deliverable. Where was the time on Monday to, create the outline and think about it? Where was the time on Tuesday to do the first draft? And where was the time on Wednesday to get the feedback from the team? And when was the time on Friday or Thursday to finalize it? Those are the pieces that we're typically missing, right? To actually get that work done versus it's a meeting, it's an appointment. We'll get that on, or we'll have a due date, but it's like that time to actually get the work done. So that I'm really glad you kind of mentioned that, because that's what we're always missing on our calendars. And then we get into like a mess that we over promise, we have too many deliverables. We can't keep up. We fall behind, and it's just a vicious cycle.
I think for the hair and beauty industry, we have this sort of fantasy that we're going to run our business in the 15-minute gaps between our clients. And I think that's just setting ourselves up for failure, because like you say, you can't, there's a lot of planning and pre-thinking to anything that you're going to do. You can't just sit down in 30 minutes and smash out a newsletter to your client base, because it takes time, it takes thought. And I don't know about you, but if I sit down to do a project, it takes me a good 15-20 minutes to get in the zone, to really just think about all the pieces and really what do I want to say and what order does it happen. And then I'm in the zone. So I like to say that really, if you've got a big chunk of work or a project that you're working on, I don't know about you, but I like a 3-hour block, because it takes me 20 minutes to get into the zone, and I can get lots of things done and I can complete something to the end. And then it's a bit like after the end of a holiday, or on a Sunday when you start to think about the next week. So the last 20 minutes before my next whatever, I start to come out of the zone and then start to look around and go, right, what's next? What's happening in my life? So you kind of need a big chunk, because you lose half of it in just getting in the zone and out of the zone.
Yeah. Well, so it's funny. And what I love that is that you found your system and you found what works for you. I really different. I can't stay focused for 3 hours. I cannot. I just can't do it. Even if it's a thing I love to do, it's just really hard for me to find that time. So I actually like to chunk things down to much smaller, like 30-minute blocks, 40-minute blocks, 20-minute, usually not 20, usually it's like 30 minutes to an hour, like kind of, and that I know that just works well for me. So that's really important, because we've got to see like what works well with our energy levels. Like you said, you're in the flow, you want to stay in the flow, and that's great for me. It's stressful for me. So that's part of when you're coaching. We all have our own, ways that just work well for us, and we want to work with our energy instead of trying to force things against it. But there are ways, right? We can figure out what works well and then work accordingly. But it's still going to come down to that planning, because we all know whether you have three hours, whether you have 30 minutes, we can find ways to waste it all the time, right? We can find something to fill up our time that's just not a priority. It's just not relevant. That's just not moving our business or our health or our relationships forward. So again, it's sort of like not the tool, how long you have, but the strategy behind it.
Yeah, I'm into that. Now, as a business owner yourself, what would you say is a quote or a mantra or something that keeps you sort of super focused and moving forward?
Okay, this one's kind of random because it's really like a life quote, but I feel like it applies to business. So it's Maya Angelou's, that everyone's heard it often, but people won't remember what you said. They'll remember how you made them feel. Sorry, that was it. Yeah, something along those lines. And I feel like that's so relevant, especially as business owners, because we can get so wrapped up into all the minutia, into all the details, into so much, again, that's always on our minds and making us feel overwhelmed. And at the end of the day, we have to remember, whether it's our clients or our team or our colleagues or our family, it's ultimately how we make people feel. So it's just like stepping back out a bit. Sometimes it's get out of the chaos, be like, you know what, just how do I make other people feel?
Yeah, I love that. I love that a lot. What is a book, a resource, a podcast, or something that you can share that you think all salon owners should get their hands on, business owners?
So I couldn't think of one book. So my most recent book that I loved is called No One Succeeds Alone by Robert Refkin. And he is an entrepreneur who started Compass Real Estate. But anyway, it's just a fascinating story of just never giving up and how he's built this. And he was just amazing. And then I'm just going to have to say, my Productivity on Purpose podcast is something everyone should listen to too. So
great. I'm going to make sure we've got the link to that on the show notes of this episode, so we can find you and stalk you on that topic. Give us your socials and your www. Where can we find you? And so we can find out more about what you do.
Well, great. Well, the best way to connect is really come on over to my website, where you can learn all about me. I'm at lifeisorganized.com. And I'm also on Facebook and Instagram. But
As the same?
But come over to the site. You'll find the podcast, my book, a lot of free trainings, a lot of great resources.
All right. Amazing. Mridu, thank you so much for joining us. This has been a great chat, right up my alley. And I think it's one of the kind of the very first things that get in our way as a business owner. Just these really simple but sort of highly overlooked tools. All of the other business strategies kind of come after this. So I really appreciate your insights today.
Well, I really appreciate you sharing me with your audience. Thank you.